Hello, everybody. Happy to be here with you today. Thanks a lot for the introduction. My name is Inga, and today I would like to get an answer to the question together with you, do really spatial apps need spatial creation tools? I have some corporate background working for companies like Siemens and Dell. For several years already, we are building the company Tvori, which is design and prototyping software for VR and AR. And we are really eager to know, does this problem exist, or it's a problem just of some selected people? Daniel Robbins from HTC, who is a designer for for about 20 years already, actually, he now calls himself a spatial designer. And he said that there is a huge gap in building for VR and AR, which really slows down the adoption of XR. And this is the lack of the prototyping tools. So do you think that we can inherit the 2D tools, the PC flat screen tools, to design and prototype our spatial products? There are spatial tools and software out there on the market, and there are great modeling and sculpting, 3D modeling tools like Microsoft Gravity Sketch and Masterpiece VR. You can sculpt in Oculus Medium, you can animate in Tvori and Creel. So there are tools out there, but it seems like the backflow for XR creation still inherits most of the tools from today, flat screen type of tools. And is there a reason for that, or it's just not the time for these tools? And to answer this question, I would like to take you back to early 90s. Everyone knows that the ever first website went live back in 1991. And for the next 10 years, most of the websites were looking like a developer's panel rather than the face of the company. It was very difficult actually to build the website, and all the websites were designed by developers, by software developers. Today, anyone can build an amazing website, and there is a close collaboration between designers and developers. It seems like in VR and AR, we have exactly the same problem like the early web. So we are inherit and we design our VR and AR products just using the flat screen tools. And actually, the VR and AR is mostly designed today by developers. And this definitely impacts the adoption and the quality of the spatial apps and products. So this is just a hypothesis, and let's try to figure out, does it really make sense to have some of the product development happening inside the spatial environment? But it seems like that the transition from what you have on your desktop to VR, where your user is going to experience the app or the game, but the same for AR actually, is very expensive. It takes time, it takes resources, it's also not accessible to non-technical people. So there is one feature which is common for all the different VR creation tools today. And this feature is the fact that it's very accessible. Most of the tools are very accessible to almost anyone. And this is the major advantage of VR as a technology, because it allows you to interact with the 3D models and assets just like you do in real life. So we're just observing the democratization of 3D content creation. And at the community of XR creation tools, we really believe that XR teams can become much more productive because you can iterate fast, you can really make changes immediately, and you can ideate freely. XR teams might become more diverse, meaning that even people without 3D skills can jump and start building. Very creative people, like 2D designers, for example. But also XR teams can become more successful, meaning that they can much better pitch their ideas and they can demo them always in VR and not just on paper or slides or trying to explain with hands. And I would like to briefly take you through several use cases of different companies and show why they're doing prototypes in VR. So Unity had the XR team building some apps for their AR. And for them, they found it's reasonable to make the simulation of AR all within virtual reality. They actually had lots of different stages, and you can check that in Unity blog, including paper prototyping. But they ended up using VR software because it is super important to simulate the limited field of view for the AR device. And it's also super important to experience your prototype at the human scale, actually one-to-one scale, as your user is gonna interact with your app. And they actually found it like a very efficient approach. Another example is with Walmart. Of course, you all know about Walmart doing lots of stuff for trainings, but also Walmart is working on the future of retail. And there was a big communication gap between designers and the developers, the Unity developers. So it took them, the development cycle was just too long. And then they discovered VR creation software, and the prototype you see playing right now, you can build in VR within a couple of hours. And you see you can simulate the whole experience spatially. And in the corner of this video, you can see that you can also teleport and view it from different perspectives, really spatially. So it's really made the team much more productive. And the very different use case, actually, from the film production industry, I would like to mention here is the Cartoon Network studio. This is a well-known, mostly 2D animation studio, which released the 3VR games Johnny's VR, now nominated for Webby Awards. And these games are now available on Steam. So the 2D animators were able to jump into virtual reality and start exploring the space and the design. Finally, you can also simulate your mobile AR by just using virtual cameras and having some objects being appointed as an AR layer and all other objects being your real world. It's also possible to do all within virtual reality. So you see that there are some chairs appearing and they are only visible through this virtual camera, and they are not visible when you're not pointing out the camera to those chairs. So, and the last but not least use case is actually from Tvori. And given the fact that this is VR prototyping software, we wanted to make sure that all our tools feel spatial, that the UI is actually feels like VR born and not just PC type of UI within the virtual reality. And that's why we used Tvori to actually build a new timeline all within virtual reality. And what if you take it even further and we go from 2D storyboards to fully animated simulation? And we are actually democratized animation, and let's just listen to this artist.
Hi, Joe Daniels here. Whenever I'm giving talks or chatting casually about using VR in my professional work, one of the first questions people often ask is, why would I want to strap a screen to my face instead of looking at a monitor like normal people? Now, I'm not here to say that VR is always better for everything. So what are the benefits? Let's dive right in. The way that all of your favorite 3D films and video games are made is with the hard work of trained artists who create in 3D space in what may be the least efficient way possible. Let's take an example of giving our character an apple to hold and then posing that character to hold that object. We'll compare what artists currently do with what I'll hope you see is a much better way. So, looking at a flat screen, we move things in 2 dimensions and then rotate our view to see what it looks like from another angle, shown in 2 dimensions. As soon as we move the camera, we see things are off, and we need to move them in 2D over and over and over until we get what we're looking for. This requires lots of mouse clicks and hotkeys as we switch between moving, rotating, scaling, and until recently, there hasn't been a better way. VR tools have simplified the act of digital 3D creation by allowing us to create in more intuitive ways. When I work in VR, I see things the way I do in the real world, so I can pick up an object and put it exactly where I want it the first time. That's huge. I'm using the software Tvori here, and there's an even faster way to manipulate these objects because I don't just have to use one hand the way that I use a single hand on a mouse. I can grab multiple parts of the character and move it all at once.
Look at that. So fast.
Let's take a look at the results of our little experiment. In VR, we completed the task using both hands to pose the character, finishing in 2 seconds. While the standard CG approach took us 18 keystrokes, 23 mouse clicks, and 30 seconds to complete. That's 15 times as long, meaning we spent a ton of time making technical decisions instead of being creative.
So it seems like there are some benefits why you can move your prototyping and ideation stage to virtual reality. But I would fully agree that VR is not as precise today to do the final production. But sketching, ideation, visualization, and communicating your ideas should be possible within virtual reality. And I'm very happy now to move to the Q&A session. And as an action item, and given most of the XR creation tools are early stage today, we are all very open to feedback, and we would really like to discuss what's happening next and getting your feedback about spatial products development cycle. Hope to see you at the Q&A. Thank you.
Hello, Inga. My name is Eamon. Thank you. That was really, really awesome. So you've got your Master's of Science.
Very glad to meet you.
Yeah. So you've got your Master's of Science in Information Technologies from Hamburg University of Technology, one of my favorite cities. I really like that miniature wonderland.
Really? Yeah, it's very green. I love it too.
So questions, we'll move right into the Q&A. Is there a trial we can try it out? Where can we find Tvori? What platforms? And then what kind of use cases are best to try to prototype electronically, like in VR?
Yeah, so there is starter version, so it's free on Oculus Store, Viveport, or just on our website, so you can go and try. So the trial version is limited in the animation time, so it's just 1 minute of animation, and you can't import your assets and you can't export. But there is also like the extended trial pro version, so it's just like reach out, and we are a small team, very responsive. So the use cases, the heart of Tvori is animation, and we have a big community of Tvori early adopters, who started to grab the software probably 4 years ago. Those people kind of create complete VR movies and films and stories, but our focus today is on XR teams, meaning that you are building your apps, actually your game, your product, you research the UI or UX interfaces. So we are focused on pro users who want to release the product for virtual augmented reality, but they want to make sure that this is awesome. And by awesome, I mean that there are no questions for users why they should experience that game or use that app in a headset or with AR. And this is how we say that then you need to research your interfaces and interactions, change of states spatially. So.
No, I mean, that's a great answer. You seem to be a very responsive team trying to build this awesome platform. I mean, it makes perfect sense. You get the speed, the effectiveness, and the scale when you're working in VR, which you don't. I'm a 3D artist and animator working in LA, and yeah, it's really challenging, and it takes so long, people don't know, to make anything 3D animated in the current pipeline. So I'm excited to see actually, I'm excited to try it personally for the Fungusaurus stuff that I'm building.
So definitely take a try. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Will do. No, just one more question since we are at 9:40. We've got to move to the next presentations. But are there any cases where 3D development is benefited by 2D manipulation rather than 3D?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And, we are interviewing today different XR teams. It depends 3D for the flat screen or 3D for their spatial environment. Definitely it does make sense. But today the backflow might consist of like tools like Figma or Adobe HD, and sometimes 2D manipulation does make sense. And we talk to so many companies today, to different teams, and the backflow is very different. So, and there are no standards today, right? Creating for VR or AR, and but also the talents are those who exist on the market, and those people usually come with a web background, building for flat screen or 2D artist. We were pretty impressed by our cooperation with Cartoon Network when 2D animators actually were jumping into VR and they started creating 3D. So that was kind of really a disruption, because they used to draw on paper or on their iPads, and this was always kind of a flat 2D dimension for them. But then they were so excited because 3D was not accessible for them. They have such different skill sets, right? So it does make sense. And again, so I don't think that today the VR creation platforms are ready for some use cases. And we spent quite some time working with traditional animators building for flat screen, and probably then the value is not as great. So you can definitely speed up the process, creating animatics and previses. But if your output will be flat screen, there is no big sense to use probably VR tools. You can be faster, but then you don't need these depths and you don't need this kind of spatial feelings. But if you're building films or games or products for mixed reality, then it does make sense to have this spatial 3D interactions.
Thank you, Inga. That's a great explanation and way to build for VR applications in VR. I think you guys are doing an excellent job.
Yeah, but make sure to reach out and let's discuss that further. Probably pen and paper and physical whiteboard is a great prototyping still, and communication verbally with hands. But I'm pretty sure that we should take it further and make a brave step to start using VR tools.
Agreed. Thank you so much for your time, Inga.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.